We are made in the image of God. Few things resonate with us quite like this one. The phrase sings in our hearts. That elation that we might in any way resemble God is about the kindest thing we can say to each other. Hi, I'm Drew, and this is Faith 15. Now, in part one of this talk about human nature, we talked about the idea of original sin. Now, if you have not explored it, I encourage you to check that one out. And while the doctrine itself is attractive as a way of explaining why some people can be so terrible, it is not without flaws. And for me, the most significant one is this. It presupposes that we are all bad, broken, terrible creatures. Now, this idea, of course, struggles next to the idea that we are made in the image of God. It only makes God look bad, too. If we are to say that we are bad, it is a way of saying we are entirely bad. That's another problem. In a logical sense, much of that doctrine of the church, which describes our sinfulness, has a way of pulling us all down into the muck and then being like, see how terrible we all are? It seems less objectively true and more subjectively negative. Think of it as getting stuck next to someone on a transatlantic flight who keeps listing all the ways people are wrong. Why would any of us in that situation see the positive in them without trying to find it? Being made in the image of God is a far more robust prospect than the collection of our worst tendencies. It also doesn't require our compensating with incessant puffery or avoiding the truth. And the truth is, being human has almost nothing to do with this good-bad spectrum. Now, I want to share with you how the Book of Common Prayer describes human nature. If you want to look this up, it's on page 845. Now, the BCP, as we call it, has a section toward the back called An Outline of the Faith, commonly called the Catechism. And it's written like a series of questions and answers. Now, this is how it reads. What are we by nature? We are part of God's creation, made in the image of God. What does it mean to be created in the image of God? It means that we are free to make choices, to love, to create, to reason, and to live in harmony with creation and with God. Why then do we live apart from God and out of harmony with creation? From the beginning, human beings have misused their freedom and made wrong choices. Why do we not use our freedom as we should? Because we rebel against God and we put ourselves in the place of God. What help is there for us? Our help is in God. How did God first help us? God first helped us by revealing himself and his will through nature and history, through many seers and saints, and especially through the prophets of Israel. So what do you notice? I mean, it's not positive or negative. It isn't about the absolute sinfulness or blessing of our beings. It's just people endowed by our Creator to be part of creation. And it describes a tendency to misuse freedom and make wrong choices. And the cascading effect, it's distancing and rebellion. It's easy to focus on the separation and rebelling and ignore the first description of our freedom to love, to create, to reason, and to live in harmony with creation and with God. The Book of Common Prayer gives us a vision of human nature that fully displays the tension between the desire of the self and the needs of creation. Its shape gathers our hearts around the freedom to love and create and think and be a part of all that is. It isn't only about the bad choices we make. In fact, it is our obsession with the bad that distorts our understanding of the good. This was my main beef when I saw City of Angels 20 years ago. And yeah, I know the angel choosing the human has been done a few times in movies. But it's based on a false choice. It suggests that the only way one can express free will is to rebel, which is not only illogical, it is frustratingly naive. This is the same mistake made by the older brother in the parable that we often call the prodigal son. He gets mad when his dad throws a party for his brother who comes back from the dead. And his dad is like, "What? We've been together the whole time." And the older brother didn't count his choice to stay as an actual choice. What we see throughout history is not a list of all the things humans have done wrong or the inevitable outcomes of faulty decisions. We've seen the wideness of opportunities, freedoms exercised for good and for ill, right? And the depth to which God is willing to both embody that freedom and the restraint. We can also see prophets calling us out, activists compelling us to see the injustice in our own communities, and those healthcare workers deeply sacrificing themselves for the lives of others. Human nature reveals the true wideness of our freedom. Once we've done this, now we can ask ourselves what being made in the image of God tells us about God. Keep loving, and we'll see you next time.